Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua, this is on. Now, anybody that follows this show very closely hasn't seen me in the chair in a while. I've been gone. I did 12 days in New York, came home from New York, did one day here. It was about 18 hours, collected my son, went out to California. So, but I share that with you because all of this happened while I was gone. All this happened when I was in New York. And I was given very good information that Paul Joshua was a thing. But I went directly to Jake Paul and I could not get a confirmation that it was a thing. Now, on the other side of that, there was no denial. And one guy might like speculation. Like, Jake Paul wouldn't necessarily be motivated to come out and tell the world, no, I'm not fighting Joshua. He might be better off letting the headlines go. Now, Joshua might be motivated to come out and say, no, I'm going to pursue, and then whatever his plan was. But when neither camp would deny it, right, while not being a confirmation, historically in the sport of combat, that makes you believe it's coming together. So, somewhere along this journey, right, this whole thing starts when I'm in New York. Somewhere along this journey, not only does the fight get done, the press conference was this morning. Ariel Helwani's at it, goes out to Florida to cover it. I talked to Ariel last night. I just said, hey, I can't believe this. Like, this is really big. This is a big deal. And I said, but they must be going to do an exhibition. The weight issue and discrepancy alone, before you get into records, they must be going to do an exhibition. With that said, what are the rules going to be? Bigger gloves, just for example, 2-minute rounds, just for example. Like, what are the rules going to be? And while those two boys may go out there and fight, you can have a perception issue based on what the agreed rules for the exhibition are. And Ariel said, no, Chael, you got this all wrong. He said, it's a straight up fight. It is sanctioned. There are no special rules. There are no special gloves. And I said, Ariel, is it just me or is this amazing that Jake is doing this? And Ariel was real quick, gave me a thumbs up or something, and conversation ends. So the press conference happens today, and you get Jake and Joshua. Now, Jake and Joshua did not come together, according to the timeline that has been made public, until Francis turned down Jake. I believe Francis to be a better opponent for a night of business right off the bat. They can turn that, but I believe Francis to be a better opponent for Jake to bring people in. Joshua would be so frightening. I mean, that would actually be a frightening proposition to be a undersized, underexperienced boxer and be put in there with somebody as skilled as Joshua. So that part is very cool. I heard Paul Felder speak on this. Paul was very open. He said, look, I've been critical of Jake Paul, but this takes a different level of courage. He's got my respect. Okay. I agree with Paul, and I think that that's going to be the world's reaction. But then Paul said something, Paul Felder, that I strongly disagree with. And Paul said, I believe it's going to be 50-50. You're going to have half the people tuning in supporting Jake Paul and half the people tuning in to see Jake get beat. And not only do I disagree with that statement, I was a little surprised that he made it. That's how strongly I disagree with that. This fight is 95% people that are tuning in to see Jake Paul get beat. There's 5% that believe in him and think that he can do well. And where you know that 50-50 is skewed versus my numbers of 95-5, which maybe 90-10 is a little bit closer, is just done at the pay window. If 50% of people are tuning in to see him do well, that means 50% of the people think that he can do well. All right, great. Well, then we'd have even money at the window. And I don't know what the discrepancy is between these guys. I don't know. The line's out there. I haven't checked it. I am more than confident to tell you that it's 4-1, and it's likely 8-1. And 8-1 is likely to grow the other way. This fight will not go off closer than 10-1. It will not. Floyd versus Conor, the greatest boxer to ever do it versus a guy that never boxed, not even amateur, went off at 11-1. And at one point had moved to 14. It actually came, money started coming in on Conor. That fight went off at 11-1. There is no way that Paul, in the bettor's mind, has better chances against Joshua than Conor did against Mayweather. Conor, to remind you, was a 2-division reigning world champion who was a southpaw, who was bigger and younger. Okay. I'm into it. I'm into the whole thing. I'm into the Jake Paul. I tell you, it's a 95-5. I'm part of the 5. I'm rolling with Jake. I want to see him do well. Now, there's different things that are victories. When you go into this kind of an overwhelming atmosphere, oh, and by the way, you gave yourself a month. He didn't give himself a month. That was another thing I asked Errol. When's the fight? Errol told me it was December 19th. Today's November 21st. He didn't even give himself a month. That gives himself 3 weeks before he travels to the location of the fight. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. There's different victories when you're in this kind of circumstance. And for Jake to win, he can touch any one of those different victories. At any rate, we'll get more into that later. But when you are in the 5%, and I am the 5, I'm with Jake. When you are in the 5%, this is a fairly glorious day, because this is an opportunity to shove this in the face of the 95% and say, see, this wasn't fake. See, this guy is real. See, this guy does believe in himself. See, this guy actually does have the courage. See, this guy will take on boxers. It's an issue that boxers would never take on him. We're going to go all the way up to Anthony Joshua to find a relevant boxer that would take on Jake. The story that you've been told from the beginning, that they weren't interested, that he wasn't real, that he didn't have the credibility to be in there with the Canelos and the Crawfords of the world, you were lied to. Those guys didn't want to fight him. And nobody wanted to fight him all the way. That included Francis Ngannou. Whether you like how that story goes or not, that's the accurate way to tell the story. Francis was offered the fight just like Canelo and just like Crawford and didn't want it. And we had to go to a higher and better standard of fighter and courage to find a guy that said yes. And that, for right now, is currently the story of this fight.